Have you ever sat amidst the whirl of life, suddenly realizing that in your heart there is an emptiness that nothing in the world can fill? A silent longing, as if there is something greater, far beyond what this world can offer. It is not simply a fleeting feeling, but a deep urge, a sign that we are created for something eternal. Clive Staples, Lewis, a man who was once skeptical of faith, eventually became one of the most brilliant Christian apologists of the 20th century. He went from atheism to a profound conviction in God, realizing that man is not born only to live a temporary life, but is designed with a special purpose, to seek and enter into a relationship with the Creator. He wrote, "If I find in myself a desire that no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world." Lewis likens the relationship between man and God to the way a machine operates. A car designed to run on gasoline will not be able to function if used with the wrong fuel. Similarly, the human soul also has its own type of fuel, and only God can fill that void. God cannot give happiness and peace apart from himself, because it does not exist, he emphasized in Mere Christianity. What the world offers, fame, money, status, are all like alternative fuels. They can sustain for a while, but then will deteriorate. We can try to fill life with achievements or pleasures, but in the end, still feel empty, because our souls are not designed to find satisfaction in those things. The Bible has made this clear. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11. We carry within us an infinite longing for meaning and eternity, because God has placed it in our hearts. When separated from Him, man becomes adrift, confused, unable to find the right path. This is also the reason why many people, despite achieving all that the world promises, fame, wealth, status, still feel lonely and insecure. Lewis once asked, "What if you discovered that all the things you pursued in this life ultimately could not bring true satisfaction?" Not only is it theory, Lewis's own life also reflects this. He not only recognized the longing for God in joy, but also in the greatest pains. When he lost his beloved wife, Joy Davidman, Lewis was in extreme pain. He wrote, in A Grief Observed, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Suffering is not a sign of abandonment, but an invitation for man to seek God. It is when everything else collapses that we realize what is truly irreplaceable." The Bible reminds, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. God does not stand afar to watch people suffer, but he calls them to him to receive comfort and peace. Jesus, who suffered on the cross, not only shared the pain of humanity, but also gave them hope of restoration. However, in the process of this trust, waiting is a great challenge. People expect prayers to be answered immediately, but God has his own schedule and plan. Lewis believed that God does not let anyone wait in vain. If he makes you wait, he sees it is for your good. Similar to the biblical examples, Joseph was sold into slavery, suffered unjust imprisonment, and eventually became a prime minister who saved Egypt and also saved his family. Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. God reverses the situation, turning disaster into blessing as long as we persevere in waiting and trusting. Imprisoned for many years, Joseph was not released immediately, but at the time God had determined, the door opened. When we face adversity, waiting for God to act, it is then that faith is forged. Romans 5:3-4 says, "Tribulation produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Lewis also experienced this process. Atheism, suffering loss, and finally, growing stronger in God. Lewis experienced one of the greatest pains a human can endure, losing the one he loved most. When Joy Davidman passed away, he was not simply a philosopher or a Christian thinker, but a man deeply wounded. He did not hesitate to express his doubts, anger, and pain before God. In A Grief Observed, he wrote, "Grief now felt like a wall. I was up against it. I beat my head against it. There was no way through, and no way round it either. The only way was through it." This is not a complaint, but an astonishing sincerity, a reflection of the emotions that many believers have experienced when faced with loss. But what is remarkable is that despite his doubts, Lewis did not abandon his faith. It was in the pain that he found a profound transformation. Therefore, when faced with adversity, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" perhaps the more appropriate question is, "What does God want me to learn from this?" This is a completely different approach to pain. Instead of seeing it as punishment, see it as an opportunity for growth. The Bible teaches that God can use all things that happen to bring good to those who love Him. Romans 8:28. This does not mean that all suffering is sent by God, but if we entrust ourselves to Him, He can turn it into something good. What Lewis and the Bible teach us can be summarized into a few important principles. First, human beings always yearn for something greater than this world, because we are created to live with God. This is what Lewis emphasized in Mere Christianity. If I find in myself a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. We cannot find true satisfaction in temporary things, because our souls are designed to be directed towards God. Second, nothing apart from God can truly satisfy our souls. Money, fame, worldly pleasures are only temporary solutions. Like a thirsty person drinking salt water, it may seem like it can quench thirst, but in reality, it makes that person even thirstier. What the world offers can make us feel comfortable for a short period of time, but ultimately, they cannot fill the void in our hearts. Third, suffering can be a call from God, drawing us back to Him. Lewis wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks in our conscience, but He shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Many people only turn to God when they have nowhere else to turn, and sometimes God allows us to experience hardship so that we realize that only He is a solid foundation. This is also why Matthew 11:28 records Jesus' invitation, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." God does not promise that He will take away all suffering from us immediately, but He promises that He will be with us. Fourth, waiting is part of the journey of faith. God has the perfect timing for everything. We often want our prayers to be answered immediately, but God sees farther than we do. Lewis once said, "God does not let anyone wait if it is not good for them." The Bible is full of stories of waiting. Abraham had to wait decades before having a child. Joseph was sold into slavery and imprisoned before becoming the viceroy of Egypt. David had to flee before being made king. In each case, God did not deny their requests, but He has His own timing. Fifth, examples like Joseph, Abraham, and David prove that God turns bad into good. Joseph said to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50:20. This reminds us that even when everything seems to be against us, God can still turn the situation around. Not all difficulties are the end. Sometimes they are the stepping stones for us to enter into God's greater plans. Sixth, we may not understand God's plan right now, but that does not mean He is not acting. A child may not understand why his parents do not let him eat candy all day, but the father and mother know that it is good for him. Similarly, We may not understand why God lets us go through difficult times, but we can believe that He is acting for our benefit. We are not perfect yet, but God does not wait for us to be perfect to call, Lewis emphasized. Why doesn't God take away suffering immediately? This is a question that not a few people have uttered amidst the most difficult moments. If He truly loves, why does He let humans endure suffering? Clive Staples Lewis once said, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, He speaks to us in our conscience, but He shouts in our pains." It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. When everything in life goes smoothly, perhaps we do not feel the need to seek God. But when suffering comes, it forces us to face ourselves, to face the limits of humanity, and above all, to face God. The Bible says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. But the important question is not whether God is there, but whether we come to Him. No one is promised that this life will be smooth, but the Word of God assures, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Psalm 23:4. Jesus once suffered extreme pain on the cross, accompanying the pain of humanity. Therefore, Christian hope does not lie in avoiding hardship, but in the great plan that God is carrying out through those trials. Lewis believed that man was created to find true joy in God. He said, "We were not made for this world. Nothing in this world can satisfy us because we were made for another world." This reflects the divine design of God. Our souls need God to be complete. The Bible also makes this clear. "Apart from me, you can do nothing." John 15:5. But humans often try to fill their emptiness with money, status, worldly pleasures. We are like a car that needs to run on genuine gasoline, but try to pour fake fuel into it, hoping that it will run well. But what is the result? The more you pour in, the more depleted it becomes. It is worth mentioning that Lewis does not paint a rosy picture of the life of faith. He does not say that following God will not encounter difficulties. In fact, the closer to God, the more we have to face trials and waiting. When we do not receive an answer immediately, we easily ask ourselves, is God silent? But just like a seed needs time in the ground before sprouting, sometimes God's silence is how He works most deeply. Mere Christianity reminds the reader, God cannot give happiness apart from Himself because it does not exist. True happiness is living in connection with God. Regarding suffering, a grief observed leads Lewis through loss, and then sees God is there, comforting him, even turning pain into a valuable lesson. Matthew 11:28. Jesus calls the weary and burdened to come, promising rest. Genesis 50:20 affirms He reverses bad intentions, bringing good. Romans 5:3-4 speaks of tribulation, patience, testing, hope. All interwoven into a picture of faith. God is the only source that nourishes the soul. Apart from Him, we are never satisfied. Lewis admits, we are not perfect yet, but God doesn't wait for us to be perfect to call. Lewis himself started as an atheist, gradually being conquered by God, eventually becoming an ardent defender of the faith. We are the same. Just come to God even though still weak, sinful, because only in Him we can be healed, grow, find purpose. Life always has ups and downs, but God is still present, ready to give peace, guiding us to eternal purpose. Thus, if your heart is empty, lacking joy, consider the invitation of the Bible. Return to God. Just as a car needs genuine gasoline, our souls only run smoothly when using the right fuel, which is a relationship with God. Don't be afraid if you are suffering, because at that moment God can shout, awakening you from indifference. Don't be discouraged because you have to wait, because God has perfect timing. forging our faith through adversity. Joseph, Paul, Lewis, all walked a difficult path before seeing blessings. Finally, Lewis often quotes the phrase, "God shouts in suffering." It is his megaphone to awaken the world. Pain is not God forgetting, but he wants us to reach the purpose, to be attached to him. Trust this. He is the fuel your soul truly needs. Nothing else can replace. Though having to wait, having to endure, be steadfast in faith, because God has a good plan for you, as he turned bad circumstances into blessings for Joseph. When you respond to the invitation, "Come to me, all you who are weary," you enter the arms of the Creator, filling every absence, putting your life into operation according to the divine design. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of history. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.